You could spend the next 20 years trying to work out your life, losing sleep, analyzing what happened, why someone said what they said, why you became who you became, what you should do next, where your life is going, who you really are. And perhaps even 20 years from now, you will still be sitting inside the same mind trying to solve the same life. Because life never stops presenting another question. There's a saying in India, life is like riding a camel. It is not comfortable. Ups and downs are bound to come. You solve one problem and another appears. You understand one relationship and another confuses you. You finally think you have understood yourself, and then life shows you another face. So perhaps the question is not, how do I finally work out my life? Perhaps the question is, what happens when I stop needing to work it all out? This is where something very strange begins to happen. Awakening does not necessarily mean you suddenly know more and more. In fact, you may begin to know less and less. And strangely, you become comfortable with that because you have discovered something deeper than mere thought. Not just knowing, because there's a kind of not knowing that is just unconscious, a mind numbed by distraction, a life lived on the surface of itself. That is not awakening. That is simply falling below the mind. But there is another kind of not knowing, where you rise above it, completely awake, completely present, and yet no longer gripped by desperate need to explain everything. The mind asks, what is going to happen? And perhaps for the first time, you can simply say, I don't know. And there is no fear in those words. There is space. Because when you think you know, you stop looking. The moment you say, I know, the mind closes the door. But when you say, I don't know, you become available. A certain novelty awakens. Something opens. Look at a child looking at the ocean. Before the mind has named everything, there is simply wonder. Water, light, movement, wind, no conclusion, no philosophy, just seeing. This is what happens when the mind becomes quiet. The world does not necessarily change, but the interpreter, the commentator, becomes quieter. You begin to notice how much of your life was being lived through judgments, labels, opinions, stories. This is good. This is bad. This should not be happening. This person is like this. I am like that. And gradually, you begin to see these are not reality. These are interpretations of reality. A viewpoint, a story, a mental position. Useful perhaps, but never the whole truth. There are two options. The mind either controls you or you control the mind. You can still use the mind as a tool to think, plan, decide, create, but you are no longer imprisoned by every thought that passes through it. You can have an opinion without becoming the opinion. You can have a story without becoming the story. You can even experience fear without making fear your identity. Because your sense of who you are has begun to move somewhere deeper. And then perhaps one morning you look around and nothing has been solved. Your life is still your life. There are still questions, still uncertainty, problems, still things you do not understand. And yet, something is completely different. You are no longer fighting reality inside your head. You are simply here, observant, quiet, alert, alive. And suddenly you realize there was never a life to solve. There was only a life to live. Not knowing was never the problem. It was the door, and it was open the entire time.